My wife said, "I want the house." I said, "Take it." Moved out peacefully. She didn't know I'd legally transferred the mortgage debt to her name. Kept all assets hidden offshore. Left her with 2 Indian rupees Crore loan. Hey, Reddit. I want the house. Those 4 words came out of my wife's mouth like she was ordering coffee. Casual. Entitled. Like she'd already won. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been pretending to work for the past hour, and met her eyes. Cold. Calculating. The same eyes that used to soften when she looked at me were now appraising me like a business obstacle. Okay, I said. The confusion that flickered across her face was worth every sleepless night I'd spent planning this moment. I'm 40 years old. We'd been married for 12 years. The house in question? A 4-bedroom colonial in Connecticut worth about $1.8 million. In rupees, we're talking around 15 Indian rupees Crore. The mortgage? Still had 2 Indian rupees Crore left on it. She thought she was taking the prize. What she didn't know was that she was inheriting a financial time bomb I'd been carefully constructing for the past 8 months. Let me back up 3 weeks before that conversation. I'd come home early from a business trip to Singapore. The kind of early arrival that's never good in these stories, right? Except I didn't find her in bed with someone else. Nothing that dramatic. What I found was worse. I found her in my home office, sitting at my desk, going through my financial documents. Not just casually browsing. She had a notebook. She was taking notes. My investment portfolios, my business accounts, the property deeds. Everything laid out like she was doing reconnaissance. "What are you doing?" I asked from the doorway. She didn't even startle. Just looked up, completely calm. "Understanding what's mine. Yours. What I'm entitled to." She closed the folder. "When we divorce." The word hung in the air like smoke. "We're getting divorced?" This was news to me. She stood up, smoothing her designer dress. A dress I'd paid for. "I've been unhappy for years. You're never here. You prioritize work over me. Over us. I deserve better." There was no emotion in her voice. No sadness. No anger. Just nothing. Like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "I see," I said slowly. "And you've been planning this?" "My attorney says I should get at least half of everything. Probably more, given your absences could constitute abandonment." She walked past me toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and I want the house. I'm not leaving my home." Her home. The house I bought 6 years ago with money I'd earned. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in a hotel room, and I thought about every moment of our marriage. The late nights I'd worked to build my consulting business. The international trips that kept us in luxury. The credit cards with no limits. The spa days. The shopping trips to New York. The friends she entertained in her house while I was building the life she enjoyed. I thought about how she'd quit her HR job after 2 years of marriage because it was too stressful. How she'd never gone back to work. How every suggestion I'd made about her finding purpose or passion was met with, "I managed the household." The household that employed a full-time housekeeper and a gardener. By morning, I made a decision. If she wanted to play games, we'd play. But we'd play by my rules. I called my attorney first thing. Not the family lawyer we'd use for the house purchase. A specialist. The kind of attorney who dealt with complex international asset protection. "I need to understand my options," I told him. Over the next week, I learned some very interesting things about marital property, debt liability, and the creative ways that assets could be repositioned. See, here's what most people don't understand about divorce. It's not about what you have. It's about what you can prove you have. And more importantly, it's about what your spouse thinks you have. My wife thought she'd done her homework, but she'd only found what I'd left where she could find it. The business I'd built wasn't in my name. It was in the name of a holding company registered in Singapore. That holding company was owned by a trust. A trust with very specific beneficiaries in a very specific jurisdiction. The house. That was in both our names, with both of us on the mortgage. That was going to be her problem shortly. My investments? The ones she'd seen in those folders? Those were real. About $400,000 worth. Respectable. Believable. Exactly what a successful consultant might have. What she didn't see were the accounts in Singapore, the Cayman Islands, and Luxembourg. The ones holding approximately $4.2 million in liquid assets. The property I'd purchased in Bali through a shell corporation. The cryptocurrency holdings that existed only in a hardware wallet in a safety deposit box. Over the course of 8 months, I systematically moved everything that mattered out of reach. My attorney introduced me to something called an interspousal transfer deed. Beautiful piece of paperwork, really. It allows you to transfer property interest between spouses. Usually used for estate planning or refinancing purposes. We drafted one. Very official. Very legal. Then came the mortgage refinancing. I called our mortgage broker, told him my wife and I wanted to restructure our debt, wanted to take advantage of better interest rates, wanted to simplify our finances. I'd like to move the mortgage entirely into my wife's name, I explained. I'm doing some business restructuring and want to separate my personal debt from business considerations. The broker was happy to help. We had excellent credit. The house had appreciated significantly. My wife had been a co-borrower for years. Her income, well, we'd list her as self-employed, managing rental properties. Not technically a lie. We did own a small rental condo, also in both names, also about to become her problem. I brought the paperwork home. Honey, I said over dinner one evening, I need you to sign some refinancing documents. She barely looked up from her wine. What kind of documents? Mortgage refinance. Better interest rate. Save us about $800 a month. She signed without reading. Why wouldn't she? I'd always handled the finances. She trusted me. Except the documents she signed did more than refinance. They removed me from the mortgage entirely. Every penny of that 2 Indian rupees Crore debt, now exclusively hers. The interspousal transfer deed followed. The house was still in both our names on the public record, but the actual ownership interest? I transferred mine to her. She owned it all. Every beautiful, expensive square foot of it, and every rupee of debt that came with it. I spent those 8 months being the perfect husband. Attentive. Present. I cut back on travel. I came home for dinner. I asked about her day. She seemed confused at first, then suspicious, then eventually bored. Like my presence annoyed her more than my absence ever had. I watched her. Really watched her. She spent hours on her phone, texting someone and smiling. Not at me, at the screen. She took calls outside. Just my friend Melissa, she'd say. I never asked who Melissa was. She went to yoga 4 times a week. Came back in the same clothes she'd left in. No mat, no water bottle. She told me she was finding herself and needed space to grow. I gave her all the space she needed. Space to hang herself with her own rope. Then came the conversation I'd been waiting for. We were sitting in the living room. She poured herself a glass of wine. Dutch courage, maybe. I want the house, she said. Okay. She blinked. Okay. Take it. I'll move out. We can handle this like adults. Just like that. Her voice was sharp with suspicion. I shrugged. You're right that things haven't been working. I've been thinking about it too. You want the house. You clearly love it more than I do. Keep it. What about everything else? We'll split the assets fairly. I assume you'll want your attorney to draw up the papers? She nodded slowly, still looking at me like I was a puzzle she couldn't solve. I just want this to be peaceful, I said. No fighting. No drama. We had good years. Let's end it with dignity. That seemed to satisfy her. She actually smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen in months. I appreciate that, she said. Really, this is very mature of you. I moved out the next week. Found a nice apartment in the city, closer to my office. Took my clothes, my personal items, my laptop. Left furniture, art, everything that screamed, I'm asset stripping the house. She helped me pack. Actually seemed almost cheerful about it. This is better for both of us, she said, folding one of my shirts. You'll see. I'm sure you're right. The day I left, she was on the phone when I carried out my last box. Didn't even say goodbye. Just waved absently from the kitchen, laughing at something whoever it was said. I drove away from that house, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Her attorney sent over the divorce petition 2 weeks later. She was asking for spousal support, $5,000 a month for 3 years. She wanted half of all marital assets. She wanted the house, obviously, with me responsible for half the remaining mortgage. My attorney sent back our counterproposal. She could have the house. All of it. The mortgage too. All of it. She could have the rental condo. With its mortgage. She could have half of the $400,000 in investment accounts. Spousal support? No. She was a capable adult who'd chosen not to work. Not my problem. Her attorney called mine within the hour. Your client is being unreasonable. Our client deserves. Your client is getting a house worth 15 Indian rupees Crore. My attorney interrupted. That's hardly unreasonable. With a 2 Indian rupees Crore mortgage. A mortgage she agreed to when she signed the refinancing documents 8 months ago. Silence on the other end. What documents? The documents that transferred the mortgage debt entirely into her name. Would you like me to send copies? More silence. We'll need to review this. It took her 3 days to realize what had happened. I was in my apartment when my phone started ringing. Her number. I let it go to voicemail. 14 calls in 20 minutes. Then the text started. What did you do? Call me right now. My attorney says the mortgage is in my name only. How is that possible? You tricked me into signing something. This is fraud. I'm going to sue you. I didn't respond to any of them. The next day, her attorney sent a formal letter. They were claiming fraud, duress, coercion. They wanted the property transfers reversed. My attorney sent back copies of every document she'd signed. Her signature, clear and unmistakable. No signs of forgery. No indication of force or fraud. Just a wife signing financial documents presented by her husband. Legal? Absolutely. Ethical? That's between me and my conscience. Effective? Completely. See, here's what she didn't understand. She'd been so focused on getting her share of what she could see that she never questioned what she couldn't see. She thought she was getting a 15 Indian rupees crore house. What she was actually getting was 13 Indian rupees crore in equity with 2 Indian rupees crore in debt attached. Still not bad, right? Except she had no income, no job, no way to make the monthly mortgage payment of approximately 180,000 Indian rupees. She could sell the house, sure, but in our market, that would take 6 months minimum. 6 months of mortgage payments she couldn't make. 6 months of property taxes, utilities, maintenance. 6 months of watching her dream house turn into a financial nightmare. The rental condo? Same problem. Another mortgage. Another monthly payment. Another anchor dragging her down. And me? According to every financial document her attorney could find, I had about $200,000 left after the settlement. A decent nest egg for a man starting over after divorce. Not wealthy. Not broke. Just average. 3 months after I moved out, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. You bastard. Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying. Or screaming. Hello to you too. I'm going to lose the house. The bank is starting foreclosure proceedings. I'm sorry to hear that. Sorry? You did this. You planned this. I gave you what you wanted. You said you wanted the house. You knew I couldn't afford it. You never asked. You assumed. That's not my fault. Where's the money? Her voice broke. I know you have money somewhere. The business, the investments, there has to be more. I have exactly what the financial disclosure showed. You saw all the accounts. You're lying. You're hiding something. If you have evidence of hidden assets, present it to your attorney. Otherwise, stop harassing me. I hung up. She called back 17 times. I blocked the number. Through my attorney, I heard she tried to get a job. Hard to do when you haven't worked in a decade and your only experience is a long-closed HR position. She tried to rent out rooms in the house, but she couldn't find tenants willing to pay enough to cover the mortgage. She tried to get a loan against the property, but she had no income to qualify. She put the house on the market, overpriced it by $200,000 because she knew what it was worth. It sat there for 4 months without a single offer. The bank didn't care about her feelings or her situation. They wanted their money. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, the house went into foreclosure. She'd missed 4 mortgage payments. The bank was done being patient. I heard she moved in with her mother, a woman who'd never liked me and had encouraged her daughter's worst impulses throughout our marriage. They deserved each other. The rental condo followed 3 months later. Another foreclosure. Another black mark on her credit. My attorney told me she'd filed for bankruptcy. I felt nothing. Want to know the truly beautiful part? I never technically did anything illegal. The mortgage transfer? Legitimate financial restructuring. She signed the documents voluntarily. The hidden assets? They were in legal offshore accounts and business structures, established years before I knew divorce was coming. I simply didn't liquidate them during the divorce proceedings. Not illegal, just strategic. The timing? Careful planning isn't a crime. Her attorney tried to go after me for dissipation of marital assets, but they couldn't prove I'd hidden anything during the marriage. The offshore accounts and business structures predated any divorce proceedings. I'd established them for legitimate business purposes, tax efficiency, asset protection, international consulting work. The fact that I knew exactly how to use them when I needed to? That's just good planning. I'm writing this from my apartment in Singapore now. Beautiful place. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Marina Bay. My consulting business is thriving. Turns out that when you're not supporting a spouse who contributes nothing, you can focus on growth. The house in Bali is nearly finished renovations. Thinking of retiring there in a few years. My cryptocurrency holdings have tripled since the divorce. Timing is everything, they say. I have no regrets. She taught me an important lesson. When someone shows you they see you as an ATM, believe them. And more importantly, close the account before they can drain it. Was it cruel? Maybe. But I sleep just fine at night. She wanted the house. She got the house. She just didn't think to ask about the debt that came with it. That's not my fault. That's hers. The final irony? She could have had a comfortable divorce. If she'd approached me honestly, told me she was unhappy, worked with me instead of against me, we could have separated peacefully. I would have been generous. I'm not a monster. But she got greedy. She got sneaky. She thought she could outsmart me and take everything I'd built. So I taught her a lesson about greed. I showed her that when you try to take everything, you might end up with nothing. She wanted to play games. She wanted to treat our marriage like a business transaction where she could maximize her return. Fine. I just played the game better. Now she has nothing. And I have everything I worked for, safely hidden where she can never touch it. Was it worth 12 years of marriage? Every penny and every sleepless night. They say the best revenge is living well. I'm living very, very well. And she's learning that sometimes when you grab for everything, you lose your grip entirely. The house she wanted so badly is gone. Foreclosed. Sold at auction for $1.3 million. Not even enough to cover the mortgage and fees. She walked away with nothing but debt. That 2 Indian rupees crore mortgage she thought she was inheriting with 13 Indian rupees crore in equity. It destroyed her credit, her future, and every financial dream she'd had. Meanwhile, I'm watching the sunset over Singapore, sipping scotch that costs more than her monthly mortgage payment used to be. Some might call me vindictive. I call it justice. She wanted the house. She got exactly what she asked for. She just forgot to read the fine print.